chance of selling it and making a profit. The letter didn't say that freight charges for the delivery were covered, only that the clock itself was paid for in full. She hoped if she pulled aside some money to pay the freight, she could sell the clock and use the profit to make a higher payment on the past-due loan. "You're robbing Peter to pay Paul," Ella heard her fearful Aunt Catherine call out in her mind. For the past 3 months, the bank loan had been paid in portions that never equaled the total amount due. Clive Gillespie, the banker, had made it clear to Ella that she was legally responsible for her husband's bad decisions. "The eyes of the law have no cataracts," Gillespie continuously reminded her before pushing her to sell him the property. The land that her husband had taken over as his own was the last possession she had left of her father's. His gold watch, the diamond-studded tie clip, and the curls of hair that her father had maintained until death belonged to President Lincoln. They had all been sold, one by one, to cover her husband's debts. The tract of land that sat on the Florida Panhandle was thick with pines and cypress. An artesian spring fed a pool of water that local Indians claimed could remedy gout and arthritis. The acreage had been in her family for 2 generations. Before her parents had died of typhoid fever, her father had given her strict instructions to use the land, but never to sell it. Ella had been only 11 when her father died, but whenever she thought of him, she still felt the grip of his fingers around her wrist as he leaned up on the side of his deathbed. His words were tangled in the bloody mucus that was suffocating him. Ella struggled to turn away, but his bony fingers dug deeper into her. "Hold on to your land," he wheezed. "It's your birthright. Don't forget whose you are and where you come from." But that was long ago. That was before she met Harlan Wallace and accepted his proposal to join their lives and livelihoods together. That was certainly before she had learned, through Mr. Gillespie, that her husband had taken out a second mortgage on the property. The banker never seemed to believe her when she told him that Harlan had forged her signature. "How much for this red polka-dotted one?" Meyer Simpson held up the cloth with the edge of her fingertip. She eyed Ella through the tops of her glasses. Her pointy nose and collapsed chin always reminded Ella of a hedgehog. "It's got a nick at the bottom," she added. "Does a nickel sound fair?" Ella asked. 3 cents sounds fairer." As she paid for the cloth, Meyer Simpson used the newspaper with President Wilson's picture on the front page to fan herself. "You heard about Judge Willoughby's son?" "So sad," Ella said. "So young." "They tell me he died in the middle of the ocean, in a submarine. Can you imagine? Losing your boy in a contraption like that? In the middle of the ocean, no less." With her fingers spread across the face of President Wilson, Mrs. Simpson lifted the edge of her straw hat and fanned her scalp. She paused long enough to point toward the spot on the shelf where bags of sugar had once sat. "When in the world will you get some more sugar?" "I can't get a straight answer. All I hear is not to sell more than half a pound a week, and I can't even get the first pound." Meyer Simpson frowned and fanned faster. "The way this war is going on, if I ever see sugar again, it will be a miracle. President Wilson keeps talking about peace, but I don't know what this world is coming to. Wars and plagues. Well, just last week I received a letter from my sister in Kansas. She says hundreds of boys at Fort Riley came down with some sort of flu. Strapping boys dropping dead, just like that." Meyer Simpson swatted the air with the folded newspaper. "Mark my word, we're living in the end times." A breeze swept in through the store door, and the chimes called out, soothing the air. Ella welcomed the distraction. She was anxious enough as it was. She didn't need the added burden of dire revelations. Meyer Simpson smiled at Ella in a way that made her feel uncomfortable.